part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hawks POSTCAST, your home for the best Atlanta Hawks talk. It's quick hitting local insight after every game you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me is NBA and college basketball analyst DeShaun Tate. The Hawks POSTCAST is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Well, he's back. We'll talk turning point, give you our takes, and talk about how 11's return may or may not have impacted the Hawks in a very head-scratcher, Hawks gonna Hawk, play down to the level of your competition game in Charlotte tonight, where we saw the Hornets take out the Hawks 133-126. But first things first, we're going with the positive because after a 22-game absence, Trae Young returned tonight, and we just got to welcome him back because no matter what the outcome, no matter the fact that he finished with 8 points and 10 assists in his return to action tonight in 20 minutes. So remember, on a minutes restriction there, still happy to see the field general back for what this can mean for this team for going forward. But as far as what you saw with Trae tonight, what did you think about him in his return?
I thought he was okay. I mean, listen, I mean, we just got to be honest about it. We're talking about missing 22 games, somebody that's used to playing regularly and all that good stuff. But I thought that it would be very important for this team not to rely on Trae Young's contribution, especially from a scoring standpoint. The assist stuff, I just feel like it just takes a little bit less effort and it just comes so much more naturally for Trae. But that was something that was very important. I'm not going to go as far as giving him a grade. But as long as that grade was a passing grade, I'm good with it just because you're able to see him out there on the floor. Can't say that about everybody. Nonetheless, I'll stay away from that for now. It was just really good to be able to see him get back out there and just kind of get back into the flow. It's going to take some time to get back into game shape to where he once was, but I don't think it'll be as long as some people may think before we see it get to that point. So no need to push the reset button. Just be appreciative that he's back out there for now.
Yeah. I would say the same. I think that we're still very early on in this season. So not that you ever want a player to miss that stretch of games, 22 games, but on the same token, get that out of the way early. You've seen some nice play in relief, especially from Nickeil Alexander-Walker, even tonight, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. But ultimately, it's just good to have your field general back because there were spurts. It looked like they were kind of playing him for 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there to total up his 20. And in those spurts, especially the third and fourth ones, I felt like you could see what we've been talking about for weeks, which is, yes, the Hawks were able to do an incredible job of keeping their heads above water, going 13-9 in that stretch that Trae wasn't here. But ultimately speaking, when you have someone who can help you to move the ball left to right and you're taking that burden off of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dyson Daniels, and even Jalen Johnson, eventually you are going to see the benefit of having Trae Young return. Maybe just not tonight, but I don't know if even Trae Young in his finest hour, unless he was out there literally number one, having more than 20 minutes, and number two, shooting more than 8 shots. Unless that was going to happen and all the stinking shots he shot were from deep, it would not have made a difference to the outcome of this game. And as far as your take goes, that's because it was more about lack of ball protection and perimeter defense that were the daggers for the Hawks.
It was, Tenitra. And listen, not just in any game. We're talking about in a Southeast Division rivalry, one of those, we've been talking about for how many years now? The Charlotte Hornets again. Here we go. Going back to the Charlotte Hornets. And we know what kind of a battle that just appears to be for the Atlanta Hawks, in some cases an Achilles heel, but it's the battle of the South. It's what they call the barbecue series, right? And you just knew that you were going to get just a drag out, just a fight between both of these teams, especially the way that it ended on the last one. But as far as the ball protection, you go back to that first meeting, and the Atlanta Hawks, one of the reasons why they were able to add a number to the left side of the result column was because they were able to keep the turnovers at a minimum, having only 9. Well, how about 15 for the Atlanta Hawks on tonight? Not a recipe for success. I actually thought that it could potentially get a little bit worse than that. But it was just good to see, during the time that Trae was out, that there was somebody like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, which outside of Jalen Johnson, it feels like it was much of his show to help storm back for this team and cut that deficit. But even more so, like, that's just one thing. I think that the other thing was just more so the perimeter defense just was not good. Whenever that you have a Charlotte Hornets team, and I get it, they probably have the most attempts that they average in the whole NBA. I think they put up 43 pointers per game. You got Kon Knueppel, who is one of the best shooters, I feel like, in the league already. Certainly, no question within this rookie class.
Yeah.
Between LaMelo Ball had, I think, 10 threes or something or 8 threes.
8, yeah.
Between everybody in the starting lineup, they scored. They converted on about 23 pointers, and that's just lineup alone. That alone is just absolute no. The perimeter defense for the Atlanta Hawks, it was trash tonight.
Yeah.
It's just something that you can have if you want to beat a team, not just any team, regardless of the name on the front of the jerseys. Your rival at that, they're going to get your best shot.
Yeah. I mean, this is the same conversation, as you mentioned, that we've been having for years. You called it the barbecue series, and I'm like, why the Hawks have to be the ones to get roasted? Like, why they got to be the birds that take the L tonight? Just saying. But I mean, that just is what it always has been. It's them. You and I have this conversation about 3 teams when it comes to the Hawks.
Yeah.
The Charlotte Hornets, the Washington Wizards, and the Chicago Bulls. Devoid of record. That's why when I saw 8-18, I didn't blink. You saw 8-18, you didn't blink. Because even though the Hawks won the game and now they're tied up for the season series so far, it's only by 3 points in that first win last month, because that's what this series typically is. And even with the Hawks down 24 points, ultimately the Hornets win, but they still only win by 7, because these teams just scrap and fight no matter what their records are, no matter who takes the court. That's just what it looks like. But it does feel frustrating for me. And my take was similar to something that you mentioned, which was the performances of both Jalen Johnson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I'm like, way to waste those performances, way to waste those outstanding nights, Hawks. Like, that's what's frustrating for me. And granted, we talk about the fact that when you have a game like this, where you're down 24, where this game starts on an 8-0 run, oftentimes by the time you get to the fourth quarter, even getting it down to a point or 2 points or 5 points, you're so out of gas and exasperated from having to dig yourself out of the hole. It's just too difficult to kind of overcome. But you can't fault Jalen Johnson for that, because he had 43 points.
New career high, baby.
Exactly. 43 points in 39 minutes. He was 4 of 10 from 3, perfect from the free throw line, 16 of 28 from the field, 11 rebounds, 9 assists. So right there at the cusp of a triple-double. And not just that, but we talk about when players are contributing. So this could have been one of those blowout games where those numbers could have kind of been pads, if you will. But it's the fact that there was a stretch where he was putting so much pressure on the rim. 8 field goals, 7 free throws that he attempted in 13 minutes, because he was just determined, I'm going to get to the basket. I'm going to get to the basket. And you kind of wish that you would have seen that from every Hawk. And that, to me, is what's disappointing. Like Jalen Johnson, he didn't have his best first half, but he came back all guns blazing, trying to help this team come back. And then on the flip side, or conversely, Nickeil Alexander-Walker did have a great first half. I mean, coming off the bench, because of course he's been working or operating in relief in Trae's absence, coming off that bench tonight, on their way into the half, he had 18 points on 6 of 7 baskets from the field. But you know what was important? It was the 4 threes. It was the 3, then the 3, then the 3 to end the half that made you think this team actually had a chance. So those guys definitely did their part to put the Hawks in position. It's just that I think everybody else was just exasperated by the effort it took to come back, and they couldn't seal the deal.
I think that that's the case, and I mean, the Charlotte Hornets did a good job of kind of trying to do the best that they could at taking the air out of the lungs for the Atlanta Hawks anytime that they tried to really get on a really good solid run, which I thought the Hawks still did a good job of in some instances. The first thing I thought they needed to do is not trade baskets with Atlanta. Not trade baskets with Charlotte, especially from the perimeter. but also to stay true to ATL, right? And we know that that's something that Atlanta does. That's why I kind of felt like a comeback might be brewing. Having good shot selection. There's, slow and easy type of approach to a lot of games when they're just happen to be, trailing in these games, being steady, taking those calculated risks. And, persistency is typically their bread and butter. But Charlotte did a good job of applying the pressure, and not just by making shots, big time shots, but also by highlight real dunks and everything else to kind of get the crowd involved, to kind of take the wind out of Atlanta. So you knew that at some point Atlanta was going to make a run. But Charlotte did themselves quite the fine job, albeit while still almost giving the game away. I really thought that Charlotte, their inexperience was starting to show down the end stretch there, and maybe they was counting their chickens a little bit too early. But I just wish that we could have gotten a little bit more out of select players from the Atlanta Hawks to help assist not only Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but also Jalen Johnson, who, happy birthday to him, by the way, turning 24.
Yeah, he definitely showed out on his birthday. Yeah, happy birthday to you, Jalen Johnson. Sorry that you weren't able to get a dub from this team, but we'll talk about exactly what the turning point was in the loss tonight. This episode of our Hawks Postcast is brought to you by Robinhood. Nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. This episode of our Hawks Postcast is also brought to you by Gusto. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save hours every week. And knowing you can reach certified HR experts anytime gives you real peace of mind. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/lockedonnba and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right. 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/lockedonnba. That's gusto.com/lockedonnba. This episode of our Hawks Postcast is also brought to you by Rocket Money. Ever feel like your money just disappears each month? It happens fast. A few subscriptions here, an impulse buy there, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account don't match the numbers in your head. Rocket Money helps you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances, because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you can save more and stress less. Rocket Money finds subscriptions you forgot you were paying for and helps you clean them up quickly. Seeing all your spending on one dashboard makes it easier to understand where your money is going. So take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. In the box score, DeShaun, it does not look that bad because Charlotte only outscored Atlanta 43-37 in that second quarter. But there were some telltale signs in the period that said, hey, this game is going to go just the way it went. And that's why we said the second quarter was the turning point.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
So yeah, DeShaun, this is one of those where you look at the box score and you say to yourself, okay, not too bad as far as what the Hawks were able to do, because when we think about the fact that they were down by as many as 24 points, certainly being outscored by 6 points in that period would tell you that they didn't do poorly in that period. However, when you looked further into that box score and some of the things that you saw in successive plays, you really felt like that was what the turning point was, just the lapses on defense and the inability to at times really get your offense to be consistent.
Yeah, I think that was, ultimately not only the turning point, but, something that hopefully the Atlanta Hawks learned from, because they came right out the gate. And, I know that, we could talk about other quarters or what have you, but coming right out the gate, a 15-3 run by Charlotte to open up the second quarter really did in the Atlanta Hawks. And they just have a way, for whatever reason, of maybe getting a basket to cut a run's deficit a little bit. But then the opposing team just jumps right back on the gas all over again. That 15-3 run really was, kind of started with Brandon Miller's amazing dunk that got everybody up off their feet over a dunk over Krejci. I think I even seen a couple little awkward faces and zip lips from the Atlanta Hawks bench at that time. It was so nasty. But then Moussa Diabate ended up getting a dunk as well. Within that span, on that run, 2 turnovers for the Atlanta Hawks, 1 for 7 from the field. Then from there turns into a Charlotte 10-4 run. And not long after that, kind of sealing the deal, what ultimately led to 24-point lead for Charlotte. 5 3-pointers came after that, that was converted for the Charlotte Hornets in a span of 3 minutes. By the way, LaMelo Ball having 4 of those 3-pointers, 4 of those 5 3-pointers in that time. So yes, I give the Hawks a little bit of credit within that particular time span where they ended up going on an 11-2 run of their own. That was late in the second quarter. That didn't really help them. I think they really needed some help in the third quarter, not only from offensive standpoint, because they were fairly consistent in that, but they weren't consistent enough with the stops. I think that's something that just really kind of pained them. And then obviously the nail in the coffin being in the fourth quarter, albeit they played extremely well and much better when they were down by 122-121. 3 straight 3-pointers by the Charlotte Hornets at that point. I think just really kind of sealed the deal. But if you think about it, Tenitra, going down by 24, had you not dug yourself a hole that deep, that early in the quarter, the run that you went on in the fourth quarter, you probably could have won this game within double digits, certainly probably within the teens somewhere.
Yeah, because the Hawks did indeed outscore Charlotte 31-26 in the fourth quarter. They actually only got outscored by a point in the third quarter, but it's the damage that's done. It's sort of the little kind of chipping away that the Charlotte Hornets did in that second quarter. And like you said, the Hawks go on their own 11-2 run. Really, it was Nickeil Alexander-Walker's run almost unto itself to end the half. But it was really more of what the Charlotte Hornets did in that period that looked like the rest of the game and the spurts that got them to where they are, because that was the quarter where they shot 64% from the field. I mean, just like lights out. And I think you said it earlier, and granted, they shot a little bit better from the field in the third quarter, from 3 in the third quarter. But the fact that the Hawks had the third quarter that they had from 3 on top of the second quarter that they had from 3, that's where really you kind of lost the game. And they didn't make the Hawks didn't make a 3 in the third quarter, and they were just in the 30%, like 33% mark for the second quarter. So that's kind of where the game turned. But I would say too, and I hate to sound negative or pessimistic, but the game kind of turned when it started, like from the tip. When Charlotte scores 8-0, right? When Charlotte goes out 8-0, and granted, the Hawks came back a little bit later in that quarter,
but out the gate
on themselves. But it was the tone that they set. Like, hey, if you know that we shoot a lot of threes and you're going to allow us to then just go to the perimeter and do our thing, we'll bet that's what we're going to do. And it just took the Hawks too long. And granted, they were able to settle things down a little bit in the second half. LaMelo Ball had 8 threes, but 7 of them were in the first half. So there were definitely moments that showed that the Hawks clamped down a little bit, but it was too little, too late. And those stops that they didn't get and those threes that they allowed, that rhythm for the Hornets to set from the perimeter, it was just something that couldn't be stopped. But hey, at least this is an early game that allows them to maybe get on the road, get some rest, and get ready for the NBA Cup champion San Antonio Spurs as they roll into town tomorrow night, because they are definitely on mission. They, just like the Hawks, have their number one guy back in Trae Young. San Antonio also has Victor Wembanyama back.
True, good point.
Yeah. So it's going to be something to see in State Farm. But of course, we hope that we're talking about a Hawks bounce back tomorrow night. The Hawks Postcast is the number one place to hang out after every game. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So remember, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And for more on the Hawks, head over to Locked On Hawks with our guy, Brad Rowland. We'll see you next time.